Something we don't talk about enough in fire and EMS. What happens when the job ends before you're ready? Not retirement, not promotion, but injury. When the tones drop and one day they don't for you anymore. In our upcoming episode on Hearts for Healing, we sit down with firefighters and EMS providers who were forced to walk away from the career that defined them. We talk about the moment everything changed, the loss of identity, the silence that follows, and what it really takes to rebuild. This isn't just about injury. It's about who you are when the uniform comes off. If you've ever wondered what that road looks like, or you're walking it right now, this conversation is for you.
For joining us today, being a guest on our podcast. And let's go ahead and start off first with your name, a little bit of background history, and also a career in EMS. And one weird fact about you nobody knows.
You want me to start it off?
Yeah,
Okay. So my name is Shai. I had roughly 11 years in fire and EMS before I was medically retired. In 2025, I started in Texas as a firefighter EMT for about 3.5 years in a small city department, 4 stations, and then did county fire EMS as a firefighter medic after that for a little bit. And then kind of did some intermittent paramedic stuff in between all that because my wife and I had to move. She was doing her master's program at the time. So anyway, I worked for companies that were kind of like AMR, and then did a little bit of hospital setting until we moved up here to Colorado in 2021. Yeah, and then I got hired on with a fairly large city department, which is where I did the last 3. I did about 3 years with that department until I was medically retired in 2025.
And what's a weird fact?
Ooh, see, I didn't have time to prepare that one. Yeah, I would say it was my thumbs, but a weird fact. Can I think on it while he introduces himself, and then we'll come back?
Yeah, we'll come back.
Okay.
Yeah, no pressure.
Yeah, no pressure.
My name is Dean. Thanks for having me. Appreciate being here. Yeah, where do I start? I was born and raised in Delaware. The military brought me out here to Colorado Springs. Got out here in about 2005 after my first deployment. Loved it so much. Stayed here after I got out in 2008, and only did a little bit of like medical things in the military, just combat lifesaver courses, how to use a tourniquet, all that stuff. So that was kind of my first initial introduction to the medical world. Anyone that's been in the military will tell you it's not that big of a class, and unless you go medic or focused in a medical part. But loved California or Colorado, moved to California for a little bit, and I could not wait to get back here. So it was awesome to be back here. I got on with a fire department here in the state, pretty large one. We ran about 72 to 75,000 calls a year, give or take. Loved it. Unfortunately, I had a medical retirement that I was not expecting and blew out my shoulder. And trying to figure it all out from here. And that was in October of 25 is when that ended. So when the medical retirement went through. Fun fact about me, man, that is, you know what? I'm from Delaware. Does anyone know anybody from Delaware?
That's my first. I've never met anybody from Delaware before.
I hear it all the time. The first time I ever got on an airplane when I was 19 going to basic training. So I born and raised there my whole life. So
that's funny.
A fun fact.
There's a fun fact.
Flew until I was 19. So
nice.
Yeah.
I guess my weird fun fact would be I've chipped both of my two front teeth. That's about as weird as it gets, I guess, for me. I don't know. So the first time I think it was 5 or so. It was really young when I did both, but I was
first time.
First time.
You didn't learn the first time.
Yeah, I didn't learn the first time. So the first time I was, I think it was elementary school. I was on one of those. You remember the scooters that you put your knees on and you kind of do that thing?
I still use one.
Yeah, from time to time in my free time. Yeah, I tipped it forward, hit the first tooth, and the second time I was riding my bike and just fell off the bike and hit it on the curb, and that was the second time.
So that was when you started learning you were prone to injury.
Yeah, at an early age. Yeah,
there you go.
Yeah.
So I should be a hockey player. I know how to chip my teeth.
Right.
I'm ahead of the game.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm Mark. I've been here in EMS for almost 30 years. I know it's hard to believe because I got a stature of a 12-year-old. I've worked all over in volunteer, special district, county, large entities, and all that fun stuff. So long time in EMS. And fun fact about me is, I don't know, probably over 15 surgeries.
Wow.
So
Dang.
one's too many, as you guys know.
Yeah.
That's probably my fun fact.
Absolutely.
Dang.
Yep, I've been here to witness most of that.
Yep.
All of it. Yeah.
So, my name is Chris, and I mean, I grew up in it. You know, this guy's been in it for almost 30 years, and my 22 years of living. And last thing that I remember is helping him out in scenarios and doing all that fun stuff. But right out of high school, went to EMT school. I actually, this guy, fun fact, he helped teach my EMT class.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah,
Small world.
him and Bogle.
Yep.
While I was in EMT school, I worked non-emergent wheelchair transport, and then got my EMT. Started working for a interfacility transport company. Made my way over to low volume 911 call for military base. So they had a contract for the military base, so we were running a couple calls up there. Transferred over to large private EMS agency. Did a couple years there. I got my medic, and then I just finished my 1 year at a smaller fire department as a fire medic.
Nice.
My fun fact is always my fun fact, and I have 4 middle names. So many names, it's got to be abbreviated on my license. Yeah,
That was your idea.
Don't look at me.
I don't know.
So you guys, as we talk about today, what we're trying to really kind of delve into is, what happens when your career is suddenly ended. No one in our lifetime, whether you're starting out early or in 30 plus years, do you ever think at one point in time it'll be taken from you? We always think that we're gonna choose when we're going to leave on our terms, our time, but when it's suddenly taken from you, I think that's important to kind of maybe discuss. So before you got hurt, before you guys got injured and had to medically retire, what did the job mean to you?
Sure.
Yeah. For me, personally, just being a part of public service for pretty much almost every job that I've had, it would be just kind of that giving to somebody, and it sounds cookie cutter, but I think a lot of us can relate to it that come into this profession. Uh, I was in the military right out of high school, so just kind of that service, loved it, and I was part of that. I got into fortunate enough to get into one of the 3-letter agency government organizations, and I love that. I love doing that. And then I got to be a part of a large fire department, and so it was almost like these really cool things that I wanted to experience in life, and I wasn't quite done yet. So I was like, oh man, I think it'd be really cool to try this, and then I'd do that for about 5 to 10 years, and I'd be like, oh, I kind of really want to do this now. So I didn't have any regrets when I was older. But then when I got there, I think that service was like deep in me, that this is what I want to do. This is exactly, I need to have meaning behind what I'm doing so that I can have happiness, and moving forward, helping other people.
Fulfillment.
Absolutely. 100%. So I feel like all the different careers that I had put me in that position to where I'm like, yep, that looks cool. Let me try and be a part of that. I want to, learn that and keep striving to do something different. So I think it was that sense of pride and just being there for other people when things were tough and things were hard. So
yeah,
and it just helped me push myself every day. That fire department's not easy. We're always learning. Medical. I mean, just EMT on an ambulance isn't easy. Working in a hospital, that's not easy. It's just that grind and that always wanting to learn and just be there for other people. I think has always been my drive for that.
What about you, Shai?
Yeah, I would say, I went through my first fire academy in 2013. I was 20 years old at the time. I got on my first fire department when I was 22. And then, that was my path. Like that was all I'd ever trained for. I went to college briefly. I thought I wanted to be a nurse. Quickly realized I didn't want to be stuck inside of a hospital setting, full time. And, I wanted to do something a little more physical. I wanted something that was really challenging. And funny enough, what kind of turned me on to that while I was going to school was the 9/11, all the memorial stuff and the tributes came out. And I was like, dang, like it spoke to me. And, I, found out how to sign up for Fire Academy, literally that next go around, and the rest was history. So, yeah, for me, it's literally been my whole life, my whole career path. I did not have a backup plan, so, putting in the years and the time and, piggybacking off of some of the stuff that you said, I loved the challenge that the fire department presented, fire and EMS presented each and every day. It was something new. It was like a puzzle, you're never going to have the same call twice. it was challenging in that regard. And, you know, coming from, again, being 22 years old and having my first fire job, I was so green, you know, didn't even know how to start a saw. Like, so I learned a lot of like, just, just helpful life, you know, things and lessons from, I grew up in this. So, it's the reason I am the person that I am today. And I would not be where I am without it, you know, regardless of being medically retired, you know, but
For sure.
yeah.
Yeah. So when you guys were working full time at your departments, what did you guys see at your career as like, yeah, long term, you definitely want to retire here, not really thinking about an injury stopping you halfway, quarter of the way, whatever it was.
Right.
And that was your plan, like to make it towards the retirement. Did anybody ever come in and talk to you guys about what if it happens, and how you can help yourself or bounce back if it does happen, and you're not one of these guys that it's gonna, you're gonna go to the end of your retirement.
Right. Yeah. Funny enough. So I went through, my most recent fire department. That academy was in 2022. And they specifically spoke to that because we had a lot of people that were on light duty, you know, walking around in slings or had crutches or, you know, had recent surgery or injuries or what have you. And, so I saw that and they would speak to us and tell us, you know, hey guys, you know, just letting you know, like, not trying to throw you off or tell you need to be doing something else, but make sure you have a backup plan because it could happen. And I remember thinking in the academy, I was like, dude, you know, I'm whatever. At the time I was 31 years old. I'm like, I'll be fine. You know, like I'm young, I'm healthy. I'm going to be super careful. I'm going to, play it not by the book, but you just make sure that I'm aware. And then with my injury, it's like you literally couldn't have seen it coming. Like it just in an instant, everything changed, and it was just the way that it happened. And so yeah, they definitely spoke to it. It was definitely kind of in the back of my mind of like, okay, I'm going to play this, especially because I'd already had roughly 4.5 years prior to, and I was basically just starting over again at 31 years old. So I knew I was going to be well into my 50s, maybe 60 years old before I could appropriately retire here.
Because it's different, like a predictive injury versus
Yeah.
just a sudden injury, right?
Right.
So when you
Yeah.
had a chronic back, eventually it's going to take you down.
Yeah. Right.
So you two were both it's acute
Yeah.
and sudden.
Yep.
So it wasn't something that was a chronic,
Mhm.
it's ache, it's hurting. I mean, I'll go see a doctor. You know what? You got 3 discs that are bad.
Yeah.
Right? No, was both of you were sudden.
Mhm.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, and I echo what you just said there too. I believe it was in the academy when people were starting hinting like they brought in a senior staff person and a younger person to come talk to the whole group while we were in there, and they just kind of told us what the job was going to be like. Keep bringing it, keep being a go getter, and keep learning. Then we had a really good chief there as well, and she brought that up with us, and she was just telling us like, hey, like make sure you guys take care of your bodies, stay healthy, make sure you report in everything that happens. Like you need to keep we put a lot into you guys. You guys give us a lot, so we want you to be around for a long
Yeah.
time, right? So,
Yep.
and I think that was the biggest, eye opener. Not only the academy of how physical it was, and you can get banged up in the academy as well, but you kind of just keep pushing through.
Yeah.
I'm fine. I can make it. Just a
Yeah.
little bit more again under ibuprofen.
So
Yep.
right, we're getting through this.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. But I think that was a big motivation of just like hearing it from them, and then knowing like I need to eat good, I need to work out, I need to be physically fit, I just need to be and not physically, mentally as well, right? Everyone in this profession, they see some pretty hard things, but I would say pretty much that early on is kind of where I heard that as well.
Yep.
On how they brought that up to us. Whether we all listen to it,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's probably
Which is funny because I always use that analogy, like for mental health. Really, is like during my paramedic program, we have the behavioral health technicians and the psychologists come in, and they're like, okay, you need to take care of your mental health,
Yeah.
and they're giving you this lecture on it, and you have like a test, and that's what you think of it as, is like this is just another chapter to pass for medic school for me to just
Right.
get to where I want to
Yep.
be. You don't understand what they're saying, what they're talking about. And when it hits you, you're like,
Yeah.
man, I didn't believe that it was real and that it
Mhm.
could happen.
dude,
Right.
especially mental health. I mean, it just getting coming out of the military and 2 combat tours in Iraq, from 2003, 2008, those were heavy days. But I mean, we would go through the lines of, all right, tell us how you're feeling today. What's going on? How's everything going? And majority of us were stubborn and too much pride or whatever it was, or didn't want to talk about our feelings.
Yeah.
We're just like, nope, we're good. No nightmares, no nothing, all the way down the line. Thank you very much. I'm like, the bar. That's not healthy. That's definitely not a healthy thing to do. Military, fire service, hospitals, anything medicine related, a lot more people, and that culture has changed to where we are more open about talking about mental health and everything, which is, thank goodness.
Yeah.
I mean, I started in 97, and the first time I heard of a psychologist, it was almost 20 years ago, or 20 years later.
20 years later.
And where you can have those,
Yeah.
we could actually talk to them and not feel strange about it. It was a big culture shift. It's a large change.
It's a stigma.
Physical injury, no one ever talked about. Mental health, no one ever talked about. Whether you started off with an ambulance or whether you're starting off on a fire engine, this idea of being mentally and physically fit, emotionally fit, and treating yourself almost like an athlete.
Yeah.
It was foreign.
Yep.
I still remember in the back of an ambulance, driving an ambulance, my partner smoking a cigarette while we're driving down the road, right?
Yeah.
So it's amazing how far we've come,
Yeah,
and how open we are now, which I think is a fantastic
It's awesome.
direction
Shift.
where we need to go.
Yeah.
So absolutely. So
definitely agree.
going through this, it sounds like your self-worth is tied up into pre-hospital, right? Whether you start out as an ambulance, you start out in the fire service, it became who you are and kind of your identity, right? I mean, so when it becomes your identity, it becomes your strength. Who are the people, or maybe the one person that you would count on that can help you either maintain that identity or help you through this to ensure that identity is, strong and stays true while you're in your career?
While in the career?
Yeah. But like Tuesday, you were fine.
Yeah.
Wednesday, you weren't, right? So.
Yeah.
Self-reflection for ourselves.
Yeah.
For sure. Right?
100%.
Us being able to know that we have a hard job, know that we signed up to do something that is physically and mentally taxing. So I think it's good to stay ahead of that, to have that realization. And like we talked about, when bad things happen, or maybe we don't keep those inside, we need to have someone that we can bounce that off of. And I think a lot of that's the crew of who we're with, and we go through similar things with each other, and anything there was something traumatic that would happen on scene or that wherever it was, we would always come back and talk about it with each other and making sure everybody else was good. And I think maybe that's why we all have a little bit of dark humor too. We try and find the things that make each other smile sometimes, right?
Challenge accepted.
Yeah.
Yes, right, exactly. And then I think for sure our spouses or our loved ones, that we can always be there for. I have that benefit of my wife. She's an ER nurse, so she sees a lot of what goes on, and she can talk to me about her days. I can talk to her about my days. But yeah, just knowing that we're there for a hard job and just making sure we have that self-reflection. This could be a tough day.
Yeah.
This is going to be a tough day. And how do I find my outlet to talk about it or do something else healthy?
Yeah, I would definitely agree with everything he just said. When you asked that question, like the first person who came to mind was my wife. Like she has been my totem pole, and I know it's not like that for everybody. Sometimes, especially if they're not in healthcare, it's night and day, like they just don't understand, and it's understandable. But my wife she's been fantastic. She's been so supportive, while I was on the job and now afterwards. It's definitely been a huge learning curve post medical retirement about what that looks like for us. The dynamic has changed, but she's still so supportive. And then, the crew, I mean, and some crews are better than others, I'll say that. It's like we used to talk about on shift about you can be at the worst station ever, or not the worst, but the busiest station ever with the best crew, and it would be the best shift in the world.
Yeah.
Whereas you change that, now you have the crappiest crew and at the busiest station, and it's like, or the slowest station even, it's just not, it's not the same. I mean, I would take a busy station with a great crew all day long. I mean, I'd run 24 hours a day if that were the case. But, and I'd say in my situation, I felt like, when my injury did occur, the crew was there for me. They reached out, they made sure I was good to go, and asked me if I needed anything. And, it was very supportive.
it's nice having that network for someone you can actually hold on to and,
Oh
Mhm.
yeah.
convey your fears, right? That's
Yeah.
like
Mhm.
the hardest thing. When you have something taken from you, and it's a fear that you're not ready for.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And whether it's, a career or it's a loved one, your response to that loss is all the same,
Yeah.
and so having that person or persons to lean through is, I think, is
Mhm.
crucial in helping you through stuff like this, especially when it comes to injuries. So speaking
Yeah.
of
Oh, yeah.
injuries, right? I
Yeah.
mean, why are you here?
Yeah. But I also, just to kind of piggyback on that too, it's like I don't think we give ourselves, or a lot of people that go through hard things and lose a job like this, maybe we don't grieve it the way we're supposed to grieve it, and
Yeah.
actually come to terms with it, and
Yeah.
and be like, okay, this is done. We're really
Mhm.
like we're still thinking we're there, and we have this meaningful thing, and
Yeah.
we're holding on to that, and then it's gone.
Yeah.
And like I spoke on earlier about the different careers, I've just been very fortunate and lucky to be a part of military, a different organization, fire department, all of these things. But I got to choose on my own terms when I wanted to go do those things, right?
Right.
And I was like, hey, this has been a great career, but I'm ready to go do this now, or now I'm ready to go do this. That looks awesome. I'm going to be a part of the high and go rescue program, right? Like I want to do all
Yeah.
these things, and then it's gone.
Yep.
And then it's like, well, that wasn't up to me, and that's that shock and all, right?
Yeah.
When I'm like, oh, that hurts. That one hurts. What do I do
Mhm.
now? I had meaning. I was doing everything else right. Why did this happen to me? And then we just don't grieve it, and then it just stays
Yeah.
bottled up.
Well, when we're hardwired, between fire, EMS, military to like push through it, it's just push through it. It'll be fine. Whereas it's like, no, it became a limitation. It became something different than just something uncomfortable or, you can push through it. It'll be fine. It's like, no, you actually, okay, I have to sit with this and look at the reality of what it is now. And yeah, that's hard to digest.
Especially when you're going through your grief periods, right?
Yeah.
Your stages of grief.
Man.
You might still be going through it.
Hmm.
That's the hard part. You hope
Peaks and valleys.
Yeah.
peaks and valleys, right? And so you're part of you still hoping,
Yeah.
right? Part
Oh,
of you
yeah.
is like, oh, this is just a moment in time.
Hmm.
I'll be back. We'll be fine, right? And that's hard.
Yeah.
And then you got friends that are telling you like, nah, dude, you're not coming back.
Right.
And then it becomes anger, and then it creates resentment. That could
Mhm.
be your spouse. That could be the first time you talk about it with your spouse, and
Yeah.
they're honest with you, and you're like, listen, this is not going to happen.
Yep.
And they're trying to be supportive to you. That had to have caused some type of angst and,
Oh, I can feel all the emotions.
right. So I can see it. Right? It's just like, it's bringing up all those, because the other thing too is this, if this is not your first loss, it
Mhm.
just triggers
Yeah,
that,
it just adds on to all
that
of that.
first one. That you have a first or a second or a third, and
Mhm.
then
Yeah.
amplifies, and
Yeah.
you're running all these emotions again, and you're realizing I didn't deal with my first loss,
Mhm.
and now I have to deal with my first loss, which could have been a loved one. Now I have to deal with the loss of my career.
Yeah.
Which
And-
is like dealing with losses in the career field
Mhm.
versus dealing with losses knowing that you're out of it.
Right.
I feel like that's a complete paradox because, dealing with people dying all the time, learning to grieve, but not losing your career
Mhm.
and going through multiple tragedies and transitioning to more of a civilian lifestyle.
Right.
I feel like that's not talked about enough either because that's a different form of learning how to cope
Mhm.
with a loss. That's a
Yeah.
different kind of loss.
And we're there for each other, like for
Yeah.
the public, right? So we always do that, and we all try. I think we come to terms with how we deal with those types of emergencies
Mhm.
on the job. I had a great officer on the job during the academy. He was one of our lieutenants, and he said, "It's not it's not your emergency,
Mhm.
right? You didn't call 911. We're just there to make it better, right? We're there to do it, to make a difference, and be there. So just know, don't get wrapped up in yourself, like
Yeah.
what's happening or what to expect before you get there. Just know it's not your emergency. You're just there to try and make a difference and make someone's day a little bit better if you can. Be there for
Mhm.
them. So I think that's what I always try to go back to. With whatever we saw on the job, is kind of like,
Yeah.
it's not my emergency. Let me just do the best I can.
Yeah.
Be there for them and help them through it. And then personally, I think we do that. We put that at the forefront so much that the personal side of grieving or having to deal with things, we don't kind of get after it with that same kind of
Yeah.
positivity. Right?
Yeah.
We're just,
Yeah.
I'm fine. I don't want to talk about it.
Yeah.
Or hey,
Yeah.
I'm good. Or
It's good for you to do, but not
Exactly.
I'm different.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And some of us have faces with it too. We can go through and be like, I always tell people, be positive. That's my blood type and my motto. Right. But, but I could just be dealing with some bad stuff that I don't want to bring to the surface. So
Yeah.
maybe I'll put a mask on for a week and be like, oh, I'm fine. Everything's okay. And it's really not. It's
Yeah.
eating me up or something like that.
Mhm. Yep.
But, I think we just need to be more vocal, talk about it, and, before the demons add up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've learned that there's two types of silos that we go. And I say silos because that's what we do. We tend to silo. And then tragedies hit. And one is we'll suck it up, buttercup, and we'll pretend everything's fine, right? And we want to be that tough guy, that tough person that shows I can handle this stuff and able to deal with it. And then the other part of that is the silo is, well, I need to be tough for my family. And I got to sacrifice for them. And I got to show them I'm not hurting. I got to show them that I can get through this and that we can get through this and then pick a career path and change and adapt and overcome. And both of those have their benefits and negatives, but we end up siloing in that, right? And that ends up being almost a detriment in a sense, because then you live in that one world, you live in that one silo, and one person's over here trying to get into your world and you won't let them in because
Right.
you're
Yeah.
siloed, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that's really important as we talk about anything when we talk about tragedy in life is, we got to tend not to silo each other, silo our emotions. We got to get it out, got to talk about it and ensure that, we can trust who we're talking to and what we're saying. So talking about that, let's talk about, speaking of tragedies, right? Let's talk about tragedies. Let's talk
Sure.
about those days
The
of
hard stuff.
the things that changed your life.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. 100%.
Lunch. You guys got-
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're gonna be here all night.
Are we gonna compare who's had the worst injury?
No.
Who's gonna win that contest?
No.
No?
We both have the same outcome, so I think it's
Yeah.
You sure? Everything's a contest. Let's do
Yeah. Everything. Oh, his timeline was definitely worse.
a vote on and see who the people vote.
Yeah,
who's
tell
the
us
worst.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's know what you think.
Comments. Whose injury do you not want to have in the comments?
Yeah. Well, if you want to go ahead and kick it off with.
Yeah. Okay. So it was May 2024. Okay, is when my initial injury happened. At the fire department that I worked with, I was a part of the high angle rescue program. We ran medicals out of the station as well. Single company, so only 4 people on the crew. We got a call to a woman down at a residence. We showed up and CPR was in progress by one of the family members. And we immediately, she had collapsed at the top of a landing of a stairwell. And it was kind of like hoarder house condition. So there was stuff everywhere and we had to climb over bags and trash to kind of get up to where she was. We started doing compressions. We checked and she was not breathing. She did not have a pulse. We immediately started CPR. It was a very tight area at the top of this landing. We worked her for 38 minutes, 40 minutes, give, the full deal. We kept getting pulses back. So had her all hooked up to the monitor, the medics doing his thing. I was on compressions a lot, and AMR, the ambulance company, could really get up there because it was so tight. And so we didn't really have an opportunity to swap out as much as we do, as much as we like to do every round or so. And so I knew I was on compressions for a long time. I was starting to get pretty fatigued. But then we did have a couple swap outs, that sort of thing. She was an obese patient. So she was probably 350, 360 pounds, give or take. We called a truck company. My officer did, to help us with some hands and some people to get her out of the house. Since we kept getting pulses back, we decided we got to get her to the hospital. We have to transport, got her backboarded, continued treatment, lifted her up, got her down the stairs. And like I said, the hoarder's house conditions, it was just really tight and we had to get around corners, and I'm holding on to the side. And we have, literally there's 8 people on this thing when we could fit 8 people on it. Right?
Yeah.
So it was just really tight. Got her out to the ambulance. We worked her the entire time to the hospital. It was after that call where I was I felt like my shoulder was pretty sore, and I was just like, oh man, I just felt really fatigued, just burned out, and just a weird repetition of motion, I guess, for the entire compression time, and then also lifting her up and taking her around. I went to bed that night at the station. And I woke up the next morning and like my shoulder was on fire. I was like, oh man, I must have like just slept on it wrong, or like I don't know. Like I know I worked, you know, a lot on the compressions and everything else. Yeah, so told my captain right away, wrote it up, and I was like, no, I think it should be okay. I was going off the shift the next morning, so I was like, I'm gonna ice it up, see how it goes.
It'll be fine. Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be fine. A couple ibuprofen. I was like, I just think I just tweaked it. So like I mentioned, we're on the high angle rescue program, and we went out to do some training the next shift. We're going down one of these steep terrains just to kind of get into a spot to where we can do our rappelling and everything else. I slipped on some terrain and I reached out to grab a branch, and I was just like, oh, and like, it was like a pain I've never felt before, super sharp. And I was like, that is not okay. And like, literally I just sat there on the side of the steep slope, like,
Please don't be real.
Yeah. Yeah. This can't be happening.
100%. I was like, something's jacked. Told my captain right away. He was like, let's send you over to occupational health, get you checked out. They put me on restrictions right away, and that they sent me home that day. That was the start of my very long process of trying to get figured out. From that point on, I went to occupational health for some therapy. I went saw a few different orthos that would take a look at me and let's try cortisone, let's try therapy, let's try all these different things. And I was like, okay, it's just really bad. It's just excruciating pain, sharp pain. This goes on for about 4 months, give or take. And I see a third ortho and he's like, what are we doing? Like, you need surgery. And I was like, well, that'd be great, because I'm ready for this to be over. Like,
because you had loss of movement, right? You had range of motion that couldn't be. You had all that loss, right?
Oh yeah. So it was like my range of motion was bad, and like every time PT was trying to stretch me out a certain way, it was almost just tears coming down my face. Like, holy smokes! And had a couple other buddies that were in there for occupational health too, and they would just hear me just pretty much like semi screaming and grunting.
Yeah.
They're like, "Geez, Dean, what's going on over there?" But just had to grab the teeth. And, but yeah, I went to this third ortho, and he was just like, "Hey, man, like, I got to get in there. This is not okay. You should have probably been in there already, right, to have surgery." And again, 4 months later, you lose a little bit more tissue and muscle and range of motion, and nothing's really healing itself. So yeah, I go underneath the knife, and I'm like, yes, please get this done, because I want to get back to the job. I'm still in light duty. This is terrible. Super thankful we have light duty. Yeah, super thankful for that. But we all want to be back on the line and back up with our crews. I went and got the surgery done. That went on for a little while, trying to PT it, rehab it back, and again, I guess there was 9 anchors or so that they put in there, and the doc said that it was torn almost. My labrum was almost torn all the way around.
Thanks.
It was like from the, I don't know, it was like 11 o'clock to 6 o'clock, and then the 7 o'clock to the 9 o'clock or something.
It's like, we need to get a couple clocks to figure out.
Yeah, it was pretty gnarly. And truly, I think it might have been a part of waiting that long for the healing not to do what it's supposed to do. So then went through that whole time of trying to get rehabbed up, and we did the Michael Phelping cupping, and then we did the needles with the electricity and all that stuff, cortisone shots,
Shamans.
Yes, right. I was like, the only thing I don't think I got was stem cells, right? But we kept just trying everything we could at this point, which the department was awesome. And they were like, I got really worried, because I don't know how it is around the country with other places. But some people in our department was like, hey, you got a year, man. Like, if you're not back before a year, like, they might let you go. And so I started sweating bullets, and I'm like, okay, this is May 2024. I got hurt. Surgery was in September of 24. Now it's like May of 25, and I'm freaking out. So I'm like, I'm just not getting better. And so, but the department was like, that is not the case. Like, we are here for you. We will work with you the entire time. It's only if if there is no path to healing or path to getting healthy, is when we would have to have a harder conversation. So I was like, sweet, I'm going to keep going after it and then see how this goes. Spoiler alert. Well, so I kept trying to do everything, and it just didn't fix itself. Like, it just didn't heal right. So my range of motion dropped drastically. They sent me to another specialist who did a movement test. I just forget what that's called now.
Shoot, like an FCE, like a
Yes.
functional capacity
Yes.
evaluation is what it is.
Yep. So I went and did one of those. It was like a 3-hour long test for the shoulder, and did that whole thing. And I said, "Hey, shoot me straight, doc. What are we thinking? Like, am I good? I'm like, can you tell me like what range I'm at right now?" And he's like, "Well, I got you about a medium." I'm like, "Was that a strong medium?" Or
Yeah.
what? He pretty much told me like, "Well," he's like, "I consider firefighting a very heavy job, and I got you about a medium." And I was like, "Well, that's not great."
Like, is
I mean,
medium working at a restaurant medium?
I know.
Yeah.
Like, what does that mean?
I just can't move the keyboard. But so, and then I got the report at the end. It said light medium. I was like,
Oh, nice.
great.
Yeah. Medium well.
Yeah. You went backwards.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So I went and showed that to my occupational health doctor and PT people, and he was pretty much like, "You're done. Like this is we've really tried really hard, and we all did the whole process, but you're going to have permanent restrictions and a permanent rating on this paperwork that I have to put through." And I'm like, "Holy smokes, dude!" So it rocked me right there. As much as you go back and forth of, I can get there. Then you have these little gains and you're like, "Okay, hey, I'm doing all right, man. I feel okay today." And then you go back to more steps, as the next PT, or, you're unloading the dishwasher. You got to put some hands away and you're like, "Oh my gosh." Or you have to just grab the laundry in the dryer, and you can't do that.
Did you believe him right away, or did you just go, no?
When he told me that?
Yeah.
He told me that he needed to, that I should go talk to my HR captain. And he was like, because he's like, "I don't think we could do anything else for you. And I have to put those permanent restrictions on." And permanent impairment was the other one. And, I don't know if it was more like of a shock of like, I knew I wasn't trending in the right direction after a little bit of time. Before I had so much hope, and then that hope started to deteriorate over time. And I was like, "Oh man." Then when I went through the FCE, I knew that wasn't good. Then I talked to the OCL. I knew he saw what I saw, and I needed to be more realistic about the whole thing. And then going to talk to my HR captain, almost crying on his shoulder, like, "Hey man, like, what do I do?" And so that's when he pretty much was like, "We're going to have to pursue the medical retirement route," and that sort of thing. So it was a very heavy pill to swallow.
Right.
Like I mentioned before, like I wasn't done yet. I had a lot of plans, and I'm sure same with you, Shy. Like it's just, I wasn't done. And every other career I decided to do, that was my choice. And this one was like, this is not your choice.
You guys talked about earlier.
Yeah. And it's just like, so yeah, that's the abridged version.
Yeah.
Okay,
That's
so- Beat that.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, and funny enough, we were on light duty together briefly after my second surgery. But so my injury occurred October of 23. I was literally at the end of my probationary period, last set, second shift. So I was almost there. And funny enough, like I had been so like excited every morning I came in, I was at one of our busiest stations, doing trucky things, and as a medic, where I worked elsewhere, like that's just unheard of. So I was living the dream, like literally living the dream. I was working for a captain that I had listened to on a podcast and then actually worked for him. So like, I don't know, it just felt like I was where I was supposed to be, and so anyway, we get there, second shift of the set. First thing in the morning, we're just doing a routine training. We're throwing all the ladders for a ladder drill. And me and my partner and I decided to throw both of the 35s first. So we threw the first 35 flawless. We switched positions. So my partner was raised the halyard and locked it, so the dogs were locked. I mean, I heard it, I saw it, and everyone saw it. Everyone was there. But we started lowering it to the station, to the building, and all I remember after that was hearing this, and the extended part came down, and my thumbs are basically the stops. So I'm bracing it like this, and immediately, like after it happened, I was like, "Oh my God, like they're going to fire me. It was my fault. They tell you in the academy, don't hold it a certain way, But I think that's mostly like when you're raising it initially, right? Like just keep your fingers and, whatever out of the way. But anyway, so that, the section came down, my thumbs were the stops. Everyone's yelling at me. They're like, "Hey, just drop the ladder." And I was like, I said some choice words. I was like, "I can't." And someone had to come over And I don't remember who came over to raise the halyard now, because everything just happened so fast. But someone came over, they raised the halyard. I pulled my thumbs out and immediately knew that something was wrong, because I could feel, I'm full PPE, and I just took my gloves like this and took them off, because that's all I could do. And I don't think anybody, because when it's happening to you or your crew, I think everyone was just kind of in shock at first. Not that, nobody was not doing what they were supposed to do. Everybody was just kind of like, oh my God.
And to go back to, it wasn't that you couldn't let go, is that you physically could not
Yeah,
let go.
like my thumbs were stuck
pin.
between the two sections. So
That sounds
it was pretty bad. Your timeline was still worse though. Yeah. Yeah. So I pulled my hands out, took the gloves off. I could feel something cold or wet in this glove. So I knew it was probably bleeding of some degree. So I took them off, and this thumb is polyarthritic still, but this one had a small fracture in part of the bone up there. And then my dominant hand was a open fracture, and just was bleeding all over the place. So I lost a little bit of bone, over time after the 2 surgeries. But anyway, as of that morning, I was just in shock. I was like, what the heck? And immediately, like, all these things were going through my head of like, number one, I was in excruciating pain. Number two, I was like, I'm almost off probation. What does this mean for me? Then started coming like some of the harder thoughts of like, I'm probably going to need surgery. What does this mean like down the line? And I didn't really know what that actually meant until months later.
How fast do those thoughts come in?
So fast. It's yeah. Like with that morning, I was like it's hard to describe. It's like it literally just a flash, and then it was like moving on to the next thing. Everyone was asking me, what do you need? They started stripping my gear off. Someone was trying to get a hold of my wife to let her know like what had happened, and that I was going to go to the ER, and they didn't take me by ambulance, which I thought was appropriate. But my medic was like, and funny enough, we had 2 medics at that station, which was, on an engine and a truck, which was not common, but it worked out because we caught a call like right after that. And so they could just go while my medic, my usual medic, could tend to me. But he was like, hey man, just let me start a line and I'll give you some fentanyl. And I was like, no, I'm good. Like I'd never had fentanyl before. So I didn't want to, I wanted to be able to make like coherent decisions. And
you were like, no, I want to be ketamine.
Yeah. Actually, I want Dilaudid. Yeah. Good stuff. Yeah. No, but I just kept my hands like this and was trying to mitigate the pain. And I sat down. I felt fine for maybe like the first 5 minutes, but then the adrenaline started wearing off and I was starting to see stars. And I was like, hey guys, can you just like give me a bag? And I'd asked for ibuprofen initially. I think I was just like that much in shock. I was like, just give me ibuprofen. And finally, my medic convinced me. He's like, dude, let me give you some fentanyl. So he gave me some fentanyl, and it made me feel drunk, but it didn't take the pain away. We were waiting on the medical lieutenant to show up and take me to the ER. And he finally showed up probably 10, 15 minutes later. Went to the hospital. It was just me and him for the first, 20 minutes. Cause my wife, it was first thing in the morning. She had to wake up. She had no idea. They finally got a hold of her. I think I actually spoke to her. Anyway, I told her, I was like, hey, I'm going to the ER and this is kind of what happened. She's like, oh, okay. And I think that she was kind of in shock too. I don't think she knew like how to feel, what to say in that exact moment. She was still literally just waking up. So she's like, okay, I'll get ready and I'll meet you down there. And I was like, okay. And so we get to the ER. I'm sitting in there, and we get the bypass, right? Because we're first responders, and the medical lieutenant brought me in. We walked right through the ER, and they tended to me right away. They gave me some morphine, kind of helped a little bit. It wasn't until they did the nerve block that it truly took the pain away. And that in and of itself is like they shoot, needle into, it's painful, but then it worked like, oh, it's magic. So I don't know if they ever did a block for your shoulder, but
only just after surgery.
Yeah. It's fantastic that it took it right away. But yeah, then
you're waving.
Yeah. Well, and it feels like when they did it, it felt like a balloon. Like both of my thumbs felt like they were just kept swelling and swelling. It was the weirdest feeling. But then after that stopped, it took the pain away. It was fantastic. But so then my wife showed up, and immediately I got emotional, because I think that's when the reality of it all kind of hit me. I knew that I wasn't going to be going back to work anytime soon. And I didn't know what it meant for me long-term, but the thought definitely crossed my mind of like, what does this mean? My wife she had to bathe me for like a straight 2 weeks because I had to, wrap my hands or whatever. And she did much more than that, like she had to cook me food. She didn't feed me. I figured out how to use a
always
fork.
figure something
Yeah, I
out.
figured something out. And there were some other things I wouldn't allow her to do, but she did everything. She was literally the biggest support. If I didn't have her, I don't know what I would have done.
I think that's one of the hardest things when you get injured on the job. And I'll ask it to all of you guys,
Yep.
right? When you're hurt, you forget how much of a independent person
Yeah.
you are,
Yep.
and how much you do not want help
Yeah.
when you're in. No, I got this. I mean, he's seen it firsthand.
Yeah.
I mean, right? And so it's amazing how quickly you turn into. Now I got it.
Yeah.
And it almost becomes a challenge.
Right.
And where the dangerous part of that is it risks more injury.
Yeah.
And that pride might take away your career,
Right.
right?
Yes.
Because you want to do it yourself. You're
Yep.
like, no, I got this. No, I can walk.
Yeah.
No, I can get it.
Yeah.
I didn't realize until a lot of my surgeries, like, what am I doing here?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Am I really this prideful that I have to do this on my own? That I'm going to risk my career, risk my livelihood and support of my family because I want to walk down 3 steps and fall off the flight of stairs.
Oh,
Yeah.
Right.
I talk to guys on the fire service now that I catch up with that are on light duty, or they say, "Hey man, I got injured too," or they call me for advice. That's one of the main things I tell them is like, take your time.
Right.
Do not rush. Like, we know what type of people we are, or we want to get after it and just, get back as fast as we can. But sometimes taking it slow is the way to get back faster.
Right.
Before you injure yourself again or something like that, which would be terrifying.
Yeah. Well, man, that pride really, really makes you do some weird things though. Long story short, I mean, after all of that, I had surgery the following day because they didn't have availability. They put pins in both of my thumbs. My left thumb had a pin for 2 or 3 months, came out in December. And then my right thumb had a pin for 4 or 5. They were waiting for the bone in my thumb to auto fuse and it didn't, unfortunately. So then the question was, cause I still had a lot of pain and it was very like unstable. So every time I try to grab something, like the bone and the finger would kind of bend and it wasn't supposed to do that. So I was like, well, there's no way I'm going back to work like that. Like you obviously need your hands for everything you do, especially firefighting and the thumbs. Yeah. I'm like, man, had this been like my pinky or a ring finger, like any other finger, I'd probably be fine. But because it was my thumbs, it was a huge deal. So yeah, they took pins out. Then we waited a couple more months to see if it would auto fuse, and it did not. And that's when I think I had my second surgery in May of 24. And that's when I met you because he was on light duty. That's when he got, and I remember watching him go through all that. And I was like, dang, like in my situation, they didn't have a choice, as far as like the care and the path that took. It was like, nope, you got like an open injury, like a fracture that has to be handled right now. Whereas something internal like that, when it comes to like shoulders and backs and knees, I think it's harder sometimes because they do, for whatever reason, they try to go conservatively. And then it's like, well, and in your case, I think that did really mess up your shoulder.
Yeah. And I always try and like give them the benefit of the doubt too, because it was to a certain extent. Because they didn't get contrast for my shoulder when they did the MRI for the initial injury, and they didn't really see any of the tears on there. And then of course I go into the Google box and I'm like, okay, well, tell me a story, Google, like what is this? And of course that tells you if it's a suspected labrum,
right,
you should always have MRI. It's just
and not the cramps.
Yeah, so they can see the tears themselves. And so I was like, well, I wish they really would have done that first. Then they probably would have caught it earlier.
Right.
And not just had a torn labrum.
Yeah. It's just unfortunate. I mean, sometimes it's kind of the way things happen.
I know. Yeah.
So yeah, I had my second surgery. Then I was on light duty with these guys. And we were just waiting for improvement. Like the second surgery, they put a screw with bone graft in there because they wanted that auto fusion. They just needed something stable. So like I said, they got it after that second surgery, but I lost bone in that. And then the skin, after having been fractured, first surgery, second surgery, I lost a lot of sensation. It feels like at all times, it feels like there's a rubber band around this thumb. So it's just numb and just doesn't feel quite right. The sensation just isn't there. But so yeah, waited a little bit. So that was May. And then PT, OT, all the way up until September. So it was just short of a year that I was out. And then I remember having the conversation. It wasn't with the doc. It was with one of the PAs or the NPs, and they had a lot of turnover in that time period. The lady I never met before or once maybe, and she was like, well, this is about as good as it's going to get. And all right, we're going to sign you off and send you back to work. And I was like, it's like, what? Like I still have pain and I don't know how to feel about this. And she's like, well, and I don't disagree with her. She said the best way of knowing like where you're at this point is to send you back out to the line and see how you do. And I was like, in my head, I'm like, well, I feel like that is somewhat of a liability, or maybe not a liability, but yeah, well, yeah. I just wasn't confident with where I was at. And after being off for a year, I mean, I remember talking with,
that takes a lot to actually think that way.
yeah,
A lot of guys would be like, cool, go back to the line.
yeah.
And
I was
you're
nervous,
out, right?
and that was a red flag for me. Cause I was after a year, just like you were saying, like I was so ready to be back. Like I didn't want to be on light duty anymore. As much as I love you guys, like some of the projects they had us doing and stuff, it's just being on the line. There's nothing like it. You can't substitute that. And I was ready to be back. And so for me to go into that appointment and to tell her that was a red flag of like, where am I? Yeah. Like what's going on? Like I thought that, and again, like this was all a learning curve for me. Because I thought, well, like with my first surgery and even the second surgery, I was like, oh yeah, I'll be able to bend my thumb. Like, and being in medicine and working in the ER, I probably should have known better. Like it's going to be fused. It's going to be different. Like there's no two ways about it. But I think I was like just being, romanticizing it and being super hopeful that like, no, it'll be fine. And I'm going to have full functionality. Nothing's going to be different. And then it was like all like these little, every step of the way, I was like, oop, have to adjust the way I see that. Oop, have to adjust the way I see that. And so, yeah. So then having that appointment, I was like, okay, well, I'm on board. Yeah. Let's go back to the line. I'm nervous because I did like, we did the FCE. We did an FCE, I think right before I went back to the line, and it showed that my pinch strength was like well below the average for my age, sex, whatever they base that off of, and well below the average. And it stayed that way. I had a second FCE right after medical retirement or right before medical retirement, and it still showed there was zero improvement. And actually my second FCE showed that my grip strength had decreased as well, because it affects everything.
You had to know after that.
Yeah. After that, I was like, okay, this isn't great. So yeah, there's a lot of like reality checks and realizations of like, wow, this is not what I thought it was going to be at all. But I made it back to the line. I went back in September of 24, and I was back for about 6 months. And I just had all these little things happening, all these little issues, I guess, where I was like, just putting my pack into the bracket, and like, some of our rigs, it's not just like you set it in, right? You have to like clip it. And I would try with my right hand, which is my dominant hand. And I would try everything. I'd try 3 fingers, 4 fingers, 5 fingers, palm, and I could not get it in. Then I'd try my left hand. And even though this one is technically better than my right, I still have, it's arthritic. And then when I use it quite a bit, it starts to swell. So I tried doing that. No success. There were times where I had to literally look at my medic and was like, hey man, can you can you pop this in for me real quick? Yeah. And that was almost like day one, we did some trainings, noticed some other things like the chronic pain, the weakness, the having issues with certain things. There were a few medical calls, where like I'd go to open a door not open. The specific call that I'm thinking of, my engineer asked, hey, can you make sure that door's locked? And it was just like a latch type of door lock and doorknob. And I was like, oh yeah, no problem. So I walked up, tried to open it to make sure it was locked. Right. And I couldn't open it. I tried this hand again, tried the palm, tried my left, tried palm, couldn't get it. And I was like, oh, I think it's locked. And he walks over and it opens it right up. And I was like, what the heck, dude? Like if that were the difference between life or death on a fire ground, like, I don't know. So all these things, I'm just like in the back of my head, could I make it work up to a certain extent? Absolutely. But when it came down to, if I was on the fire ground and I had to ask, like I'm a quarter of the crew, and if I had to ask someone to do my job on a consistent basis, can I do that? Like, so all these questions started popping into my head, and I started, I don't know. It's hard to think about. It's hard to come to terms with that and be realistic and honest with myself, about where I was at. And I had a couple re-injuries. I smacked this between two rails on top of the trenton. And then a few other medical calls, just back to back to back. It was like it felt like something was happening almost every other shift. And then so I talked with my officer, and then I had an occupational health visit, I think, and that's when I kind of brought up some of these things. And it was well, these are your options. Either you continue the way that you are, or I'm giving you permanent restrictions. And it's different from like your story, or your situation. Whereas mine was like, I had to, again, kind of come to terms and be honest with myself about, can I do this job efficiently? And I had to be honest with myself and go, I don't think I can.
And that's just us being,
Yeah.
like you said, core of the crew.
Yeah.
You don't want you want to be safe,
Right.
For not just us, but the community and everything we're doing.
Yeah.
I could totally, sympathize with that, dude.
Yeah.
I'd be doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and because I was like, man, my crew knows my story. They know my situation, but being in a big department too, it's not just some small department that you could probably make that work, like, okay, yeah, I'll get help or we'll figure it out. Whereas it's like, you're going to be at a different station, potentially different station, different crew who doesn't know your story, new people coming on all the time. And some people are okay with that, and some people aren't. Like, technically, I was a liability, like if they thought that I couldn't do the job, and it's like, yeah, well, I'm not going to do, you want that coupling undone? I ain't doing it for you. Not that anybody ever said that to me, but it's like, I need to be able to do that on my own. Like you said earlier, like this job is so physically demanding, that it requires every bit of physical ability, and so, I had to have these hard conversations with myself. A lot of nights I talked with my wife trying to figure out, like, well, what am I supposed to do here? Like, am I just supposed to keep pushing through? Cause that's what we want to do. And I think I did. I tried to push through it for a long time. And then it was just like, I can't anymore. Like, this is the wall. There's nothing more that we can do, and it's not getting better. So that was it. Had that conversation with the doc. We did another functional capacity evaluation that showed the decrease in the weakness and everything, and then we moved forward with the medical retirement.
Man,
Heavy.
heavy.
Yeah.
I appreciate both of you guys for opening up. Those are super hard things to talk about.
Yeah,
obviously. And it's you have injuries where you can kind of see them coming, but in your guys' situation, it was like there really wasn't anything. Like, we do compressions on people in hoarder houses all the time, right? It's part of the job. We got to get it done.
Yeah.
And
my officer called the whole truck over to come help us out.
Yeah.
Extra bodies, and he did everything right.
Yeah.
It just happened. It was just a thing.
Or holding a ladder on the beams, right? And having a malfunction that you can't see coming.
Yeah.
How do you guys feel looking back and opening up about that story again? Do you feel some sort of a resentment for the day? Do you feel some sort of, regret about anything? Or it's just kind of, those were the cards that were dealt, we just got to keep it pushing?
I would say for me, it was, when we go back to the grieving, the whole situation, creating the job and the loss and that sort of thing. I beat myself up for a while after it happened. I remember when it first initially happened, they put restrictions on me. I went back to my officer and I'm like, yeah, but I can still do the job. Like, I can still be here. He's like, well, you have restrictions. I'm like, yeah, that's cool though. It's fine. Like, I can still be here. He's like, you can't. You have to go home. And so that was like kind of a wake up call for me. And they're like, oh crap, I gotta get better. I gotta get healthy and that sort of thing. But I think it was mostly, I like sharing the story now that I've had time, right, to kind of go through the whole process. The medical retirement's relatively new for me. I didn't really get approved until December of 25, so just a few months ago. It's May now, so it's flying.
Time flies. Yeah.
But all the way up to that point, I mean, it was just kind of, I was in the unknown and everything else, and just having to grieve what happened to me and the injury itself. And there's no one to blame. Like I said, my officer did everything right that day, called for extra hands. And I almost make it like a cautionary tale to when I talk to people about it. I'm like, hey, just kind of what they told us in the academy, like, hey, have a backup plan, know that something could happen to you, or in general, just be your advocate. And we hear that a lot too. Like, be the advocate for yourself, so that rather than going in and waiting 4 months. Maybe I could have said something sooner, like, hey, my shoulder's really hurting me. Can we get MRI? Can I go outside of this and get MRI so I could, with contrast, so I can, we can just be sure, and not have to wait.
Yeah, I think it's important because you don't know what you don't know.
Right.
And
Yeah.
part of this, of getting your story out there, is to inform and I think that's an absolute huge lesson in this, is advocating for yourself in healthcare, advocating for yourself in what you want to do with your healthcare and what you want to do with your injury.
Yeah.
And being that person. I tend to lean the other way. I trust a lot in medicine. I'll be like, yeah, we're good. You want to cut me open? Sure.
Yeah.
Like I'm whatever, right? I'm very trusting in decision makings, and I'm not a very good, like, hey, I'm still having some pain, or, this is feeling weird. I just presume and assume it's part of the process.
Yeah.
Right. And I stay quiet about it. And that's hurt me in my injuries, right? Permanent injuries, permanent damage, because of not being that advocate and speaking up and saying, hey, something's not right.
Yeah.
Or, you know what? I think I'd want another opinion. God forbid you say that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I think that's another thing that's really important.
I agree. And I talked to some buddies that were injured already on the job, and I talked to them, and they come to me about advice because they know my story, and they knew how long I was on light duty, and I'd go around to the stations and talk to the guys and catch up with them and stuff. But then I would tell them, like, hey, be your advocate. And somebody came to me and was like, hey, I have a shoulder injury. Tell me, what did you do? And I was asked for an MRI with contrast. So you're not waiting 4 months and things deteriorate worse. And, then you don't rebound as quickly. And I'm older, I'm 41. So it's not that old.
Don't say that.
All right, Chris.
I don't know how you're still here.
But it's also just one of those things that I feel good telling the story, so that it almost feels like I can make a difference for someone else, even though my story didn't end the way I wanted it to.
Yeah.
I can still at least educate other people that are out there going through it and might think they're still invincible, right? Like, we got our 25-year, 30-year careers, but it's like, protect yourself.
Yeah.
Eat good. Be physically fit, stretch, please stretch.
Mobility.
Yeah, all these things. But I just hope that when people hear it, that, they understand advocating for themselves is huge.
What was worse?
Thumbs.
Shall I ask you first? What was worse, the injury or the decision that you had to walk away?
The decision. 100%. Yeah. And going back to the question that you had asked about holding resentment or wishing I'd done anything different, I don't think I'd ever change anything that happened.
Yeah.
Only because of the events after that. And I'll get to that in a second. But when it happened, I immediately put blame on myself. I was like, oh man, like I said earlier, like, I think I was holding that wrong and like, it's my fault. And then my captain had actually reached out to me. He's like, hey man, we replicated this and it was not you. This was an equipment failure. And I was like, oh, thank God. Like, it gave me a little bit of relief. I was like, okay, I wasn't doing anything wrong, but still, like, even with that, I had a couple people ask me, they're like, how come you don't have any resentment? Cause I don't. And I tell them the story about how 3 months later, cause I was completely off. I was on light duty for 3 months. Well, I'm sorry. I was completely off for 3 months before they put me on light duty, like actually doing, coming in and doing, because they were like, what are you going to do with, I had 2 giant bandages on my thumbs. They were like, you can't do anything. So you're just home for 3 months. It allowed us time to go in December to go visit some family in Texas, because that's where I'm originally from. And we got to see my wife's mother, who unfortunately passed away not even like 2 weeks later in a head-on collision. So for me, I'm like, I think things happened the way that they needed to. I'm a religious person. So I believe that, like, the events that led up to that, it allowed us time with her one more time before she did pass. Like, I think it was kind of God's plan in my opinion.
You wouldn't have made that trip.
No, we wouldn't. No. Well, I didn't have the time as a probie, I didn't have the time. Yeah. So I was like, we never would have seen her. So yeah, that's how I choose to look at it. I think it's about how we respond. You can't really control the things that happen to you, but you can control how you respond to them. Like you were saying, kind of to piggyback off of some of that, like I enjoy telling the story. Like, it sucks and I'm still processing and still learning how to live with it. And it's almost been a year and I still, like I've mentioned many times, it's like, I don't know what I'm doing. But I'm still learning and processing it. But yeah, I would definitely go through all of that again if it just meant that I could, we could spend that time with her mother, because I was fairly close with my mother-in-law as well.
Yeah.
So to spend that time with her, I think it was huge.
Sorry for your loss.
No, I appreciate it. Yeah, she was a good woman. But yeah, the resentment. The only thing I was really curious about was it kind of felt like, not that it was hush hush or like kind of swept under the rug, but there was no like like learning point from it. You know, how, like, because we all know what department we come from. They would put out like videos or podcasts or talking points about certain things. And I thought for sure that they would maybe reach out or, ask like, hey, what could we have done better? Or how could we avoided this? Or, in that situation, nothing could have been done, right? It was an equipment failure. But, I was curious about why more questions weren't asked, I guess, like, yeah, right. Right. Yeah. Right.
I think really good. We preach that a lot. Right?
Yeah.
Is let's see what went wrong and why it went wrong.
Yep.
Let's check our pride at the gate and be like, okay, let's just so this never happens again.
Yeah.
So that's great.
Yeah. So that was the only thing I was curious about. It was the AR is maybe going over some of that and what we could have done differently, or what, I talked with someone recently from a different fire department, who was like, oh, y'all don't tie off your halyards? I said, no. He's like, I could have prevented that, right? And I was like, yeah, but also time is of the essence, and we preach that heavily. So, what do you do?
Yes, that cost benefit
Yeah.
kind of analysis that we do. And, that's part of the the woulda, shoulda, couldas,
Right.
right, that we deal
Yep.
with. And that also brings to a question, learning these tragedies that we go through and these injuries that you guys have been through. It's a good segue to the next question, which is, what do you think departments often maybe get wrong with their injured individuals or providers? Is there maybe a lack of a transition period? Is there a lack of a transition um, outlet? Like, you get hurt, right?
Right.
Having the steps to get you out of the program and into something else, or
Mm.
support, or is it just, hey, see you later, goodbye, thanks?
I would say that maybe not like that it was frustrating or anything, but I think that depending on what department it is, you almost feel like when you're injured, you got your crew checking in on you and that sort of thing. But let's say like an HR captain, right? That there's a lot of, and when we were injured, there was quite a few people that were injured out there.
Yeah.
And it's mostly just like going to light duty, which, like I said, I'm super thankful for that. Helps us keep our job and still be around and do stuff. But I don't think there was a lot of checking in on Dean on like, hey, man, what's going
Yeah.
on? Yeah, like, how are you? How many months are you out? Like this, there wasn't really like a liaison that, because our people in the fire department, they're busy, right? They have a lot of people. They have their own things going on. They can't just focus on light duty personnel or people that are injured, right?
Yeah.
They have a big book of things that they have to do on a daily basis, and then we just happen to be injured and we're working on light duty. I would say one of the things that some departments might get wrong is it'd be better to have a more of a clear itinerary.
Yeah.
Right?
This is how it's going to go, kind of. Yeah.
My experience, the guys and gals that are going through injuries, and be like, okay, well, this is what happened. We don't want this to happen again. And we're going to check in on you in about 3 weeks. Let us know if something changes with Oc Health. This happened to Shy with his thumbs. You have a similar injury. This was his timeline, and just have something that you have that person checking in on you, not just your supervisor on light duty who's just like, hey man, we got X, Y, and Z we got to get done today, and this is what we're going to knock out. And it's like, cool, 9 to 5, work it, go home, come back, do it, go to my appointments on the side, go to my PT. Never really felt like there was someone that was always there that you could go to get clarity on what this looks like, right?
Yeah.
Because it's the first time I've ever been injured on a job, so I'm like, oh man, this is awful. It's kind of scary. It's kind of like, what do I expect? And you lean on the other guys at light duty.
Mhm.
They're going, what's your experience like? And I don't know what that looks like though. I don't know
Right.
if that's a reality, if that's something that could happen, but just maybe having someone there that could help a little bit more, maybe checking in, you
Yeah.
know, physically and mentally.
A light duty coach.
Yeah.
right.
Almost. Yeah.
Trying to get you
Something,
checking,
right?
just regular check-ins or something to keep you
Yeah.
going.
Yeah, like where you at? Like,
Yeah.
what's the latest and greatest? Is there anything we can do? And I'm not saying our department didn't do that. It was just few and far between, and it was just a very busy,
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
just a busy department.
Yeah, definitely felt sometimes like we were lost in the shuffle. And part of that too was, I think, the healing process can take a long time, and everyone's situation was much different. So, but if they did have someone that was kind of dedicated to that, I think that would have been fantastic, because I definitely resonate with what you're saying. It just felt like we were kind of there, and
On an island.
yeah, on an island. And some guys, it even felt like they could actually return sooner, and part of that was not even necessarily on the department. It was on the city and occupational health and like the appointments, because they only had like certain availability. So then it'd be pushed out like 2 weeks, or I think I'm good, but I gotta wait 2 weeks to go see the doc, So some of that's just, you can't control it, it's just
And like you
the way
said
it
as
is.
well, it was just such a revolving door at
Yeah.
occupational health. There was when I was going through my injury, I saw 6 different providers, and I almost felt like I had to re-explain my situation to them and everything else, and go through the whole process. And that can be frustrating. And I understand, like, it happens, right?
Yeah.
And it's not just me, but then when you're like, oh, he's just a number, it kind of felt like that at some point.
Yeah.
And how do you fix that? There's so many constraints, there's budget, there's, people moving on to do other things, and you can't, I don't know. I just
Yeah.
don't know if you can fix that kind of thing.
Yeah, I'd say the best resource was the other people that were on light duty, and asking them, hey, what has this look like for you? What kind of feedback have you gotten? I will say, where we worked was fantastic about at least the coverage that we had. Because I was thinking, I'm like, I have worked for other departments that did not offer the same level of coverage as far as like medical retirement or light duty and getting paid your full paycheck. Like, that's huge. Other guys other guys and gals get injured across
Use your sick time.
yeah, use your sick time, and you get like partial pay. Yeah. So that was huge. But yeah, there's definitely some level of frustration, and I think there could be some improvement with some of that.
And just, I think that the department, I know there's people on the department that I could go to anytime and be like, hey, I'm having an issue, and that open door policy that we had is awesome. And I
Mhm.
hope they really continue doing that, because at the end of the day, I could still go to a captain or an officer,
Yep.
someone in the med division that we know, and that sort of thing, and have an
Yeah.
issue and talk to them and have an honest conversation.
Yeah.
And I think that's huge. And also back to the culture change. I think that's something we can all now, have those honest conversations.
Yeah. I'd say almost, the question that you asked fell to like the people at Fire HQ or the med division. While there wasn't like one specific person or liaison that would, kind of overwatch us, like, specific people would ask and keep tabs on where you were at, and that was huge.
Yeah,
That made a
my
difference.
wife.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes. 100%.
Yeah.
She was one of those people.
She was the resident mom and
Absolutely.
checking on everybody. So
Yeah.
things like that is very important.
Yep.
And
It's huge.
but anything could be learned about, learned and improved upon.
Mhm.
And if it's simply just getting that story out to say, if you work for a department, one of the things you can think about is having that, we call them life coaches, but you can have a light duty coach that has routine, even if it's scheduled, but you have routine check-ins.
Yeah.
To see where you're at, how your health is. Seems to me that would go a long way with you guys.
Mhm.
I agree. And just navigating the appointments alone, and like the
Yeah.
injury when it happens, all the things that we had to do, and go check in with ortho, but then you have to go get MRIs here, and then you have the x-rays here, and then like, I have to talk to my risk management advisor,
yeah.
agent, because they're the ones approving everything. Right? It's just, it's like information by a fire hose.
Yeah.
And you're just trying
Yeah.
to figure it out almost alone at times. But
Mhm.
yeah, I think it would be great, helpful.
Well, I think those are all great topics. I mean, that was a lot to talk about. I'm going to kind of transition. We talked about how you got the uniform, who you were in the uniform, the injury that you got in the uniform. Who were you, or who are you now that the uniform is off?
Shoot. No, I'd say I'm still figuring that out.
Yeah.
Because like we mentioned earlier, it's a huge part of our life. And I remember having certain mentors or people that I worked with that would say, try not to make this your whole identity, because you will end up at retirement and have to figure out what that looks like afterwards. You know, after spending however many years, 25, 30 plus years doing this job, and then guys retire and they're lost, you know, like, so I had already heard that side of things, or that story, was like, dang. And then to have it abruptly ended at a young age, a younger age than, you know, full retirement. Yeah, I'm lost. Like, and I'm still lost. I'm still figuring it out. Cause it was, even if I tried to separate, you know, myself from the fire department, that was the biggest part of me. For a lot of reasons, you know, not only do you sacrifice a lot for the job, but it also, like I mentioned earlier, is like one of the biggest parts of who you are. It formed you, it challenged you. Most of the people that you talk with and hang out with are from, you know, the fire department, and you're just so intertwined in it. I think it's almost impossible to not make it your identity. So, yeah, it's almost like I don't know who I am now, or, you know, if I could have returned to some part of that, like I had mentioned, we talked about previously, like maybe going back to the ER as a medic, you know, because it's a little less fast paced. Even though I can't do that, you know, I thought I could maybe salvage a part of myself in that. And so that's kind of like a second loss. You know, it's like I lost functionality in my thumbs, and then that whole process, and then medical retirement from the fire department. I was like, oh, maybe I could do this. Nope. So now I'm grieving that. The education side of things, you know, if you can get into that, I think it helps a ton, because it still keeps you in that realm, which is what I'm trying to do. Just doesn't pay very well, and it's still pretty coveted, you know, to find a job where they, you know, they want to bring you in and have you teach. But I have found some self-worth in that. Still not as great, still not the same thing, but it keeps me in that realm, which has been huge.
So you see an engine going down the street. How does that make you feel?
Go get 'em, brother.
All the memes are coming out.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. It's tough. It's tough to watch it go down the street and go, that should be me.
Yeah.
You know, and just knowing like what that entails, like, oh man, maybe they're going to a fire, maybe they're going to, you know, a frequent flyer, but regardless, it's like, I want to be there. I want to be on it.
Yeah.
Because it's what we forget, and a lot of maybe the audience has not seen or heard of understanding the life of a firefighter or EMS personnel. There's a lot of bonding that happens in the back of an ambulance. There's a lot of bonding that happens at a firehouse. In the back of that engine. And you know, when I talk to providers that have lost their careers, they don't miss the engine per se, right? Or the 3 o'clock in the morning calls. What they miss is that identity of who you were. Was your crew,
100%.
your bonding, that person next to you in that ambulance when you're driving down the street and on your 15th call. And the only one that can understand that is the person sitting right next to you. And I think a lot of that identity, it feels empty, right, when it's gone. And I think that's also important to note, is the emptiness that happens, that occurs.
And I think the realization that you might even feel more empty as time goes on, because right now, how fresh it is for us, we can go into the fire stations and we know a lot of the people, right? We go in there and be like, hey man, what's up? You know, grab a cup of coffee or whatever, and sit down and just hang out. But I think as time goes on, and there's more and more academies and these other seats start getting filled, we're going to be almost alienated a bit and be like, well, I can't really walk in as much as I could.
You're just the old guy that's a story.
Like, oh, this guy again.
This guy, Derek Max. Oh, that's Dean.
He used to work.
You learn on Dean. Oh God.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it could be something that's going to get maybe even worse over time, because we might be a little bit more separate.
That makes I can see that
from that. But
should already feel that, because I know you had more time on with this specific department than I did. You know, being a probie, and then a little bit after, you know, little bit after that. I know quite a few people, and I still talk to quite a few people, and I can still go visit the stations, but there's still that part of me that's like, I don't know the crew, even the crew, you know, when I got injured, because things move and happen so fast, people get promoted, you know, it's like, that's still, even though I know all those people, none of the same people, maybe a couple are still at that same station, but they've all promoted, they've moved around, and it's like, well, dang, you know, I can't go back to that same station and go reminisce, you know, so like, it's
Does
tough.
that trigger more the what ifs? Like, I could be in this current, you know, time, I could be at Lieutenant. I could be moving up to where would does that trigger that?
To finally be a medic.
that was an ongoing joke.
No, ongoing joke.
There's still time.
But I I had plans, right? And did the acting officer. I loved it. And I was like, oh, this is for sure what I'm going to do. And in retrospect, I was going to be like, oh, I should have just, while I was on light duty, studied for
Yeah.
the lieutenant's test. And maybe I'm glad I didn't, because my heart would have been probably broken a little bit.
Even more.
Right. Yeah. But absolutely, just, and that goes back to, I wasn't done yet, and I had all these plans, and seeing the engine go down the street, and man, you'll start thinking, well, at least I do. I think if I'm like sitting at a stoplight, I see the engine, I'm like, oh man, you kind of just you daydream a little bit about some calls or some, with the crews and everything else, and
Yep.
I just miss that. I miss, and you're absolutely right. You miss the people, you miss the crews, you miss the environment. And the hard stuff you guys go through together, it's just bonded through trauma, bonded through, these hard things that you do. And I still talk to people I was in the military with, 20 years ago. So I'm hoping I'll still be talking to the same fire people that, that I have a relationship with, 20 years from now. So
you walk in there and just everyone just yells Dean.
Yeah.
But yeah, miss it.
Mhm.
For sure.
I mean, I definitely saw, even after being off the line, right after probation, because they promoted me off of probation. It was, it was 2 days. They were like, boom, you're done. So then technically I was a third class, after that. But watching like all my colleagues, the people that I went through the academy with, my friends and stuff, my litter mates, as you will, get promoted to engineer. I'm like, dang, like that could have been me. So even before I got medically retired, I was already thinking that, because it set me back a year. And then I returned the line. I was like, okay, I'm going to start working on my black book. It's going to be great. And I started a little bit of that process. And then, and now seeing the trucks and stuff on the street, I'm like, yeah, I could be driving that right now. I could be promoted. I could be driving that. Or I could have promoted, paramedic and done my blue book. I just, being from other departments that didn't allow me, as a medic, I was always on the box. I was like, I'm taking advantage of this, this engineer stuff, because I really wanted to do that from the get go and I couldn't. So, I had a unique opportunity, and yeah, like you said, it's like leaving food on the table. I've been in therapy since the injury happened, and I continue to this day while I'm still trying to figure stuff out. And my therapist, that's what she's like. Yeah, it feels like leaving food on the table, right? Like it's right there for you, but you can't have it.
You just can't get it.
You just can't get it.
So that brings me to my next question. You're seeing a therapist, which is great. When did you guys turn intentional with your healing? When did you go, okay, I have to heal, but now I want to heal?
Yeah.
Yes. For me, it came without me wanting it. So I was like, how do I put this? Pretty much just getting all the news that I got. And I remember talking to my the last surgeon, and him telling me pretty much like, hey, this could be permanent for you. And it's, first of all, that floored me. I was like, well, wait, hold on. I'm like 40, like, what do you mean permanent? Like, we got to be able to fix something. And he's like, I know this is frustrating, but this could absolutely be a permanent issue for you. I remember calling my wife out afterwards, and I'm like telling her the story. I'm like, yeah, get this, babe. And I'm like, oh man. And then I start losing it. Right. And I just start bawling. And I'm like, holy smokes, this is like, you have all that hope, you have all that, I can get there. I'm going to get healthy. I'm on my way. This is great. Then you have a doc telling you what you don't want to hear, but you kind of feel deep down that this might happen. And then honestly, I got like this semi panic attack. I was just like, I was freaking out, to the point where I went to the station, and I asked one of my medics, like, hey man, can you hook me up to the EKG right now? Like, I'm really freaking out, and he's just like, yeah, absolutely, dude. My heart was good. Blood pressure was through the roof, tacking 140 or something. Like, it was,
we got a shock. Yeah.
It was wild. And then I went and talked to my HR captain after I found out, when they were saying like, okay, this is probably going to be medical retirement for you. And literally I'm trying to talk to him, and I'm starting to lose my breath. And it's very emotional. And I'm like, oh man, come on, Dean, pull it together. What are you doing? What are you doing? Like, you've been through some stuff, you can get through this. And he's like, I think it'd be a good idea for you to go, talk to somebody. Funny enough, we have the same therapist. We found out. But yeah, he was like, I think you should probably go see somebody, and that's the department having the best interest in mind. He could tell this was super heavy on me. Like, I did not want to lose my career. I was, the injury and the frustration with the physical side of it was hard enough, but the mental side, to where the identity and everything comes crashing down, and you're not choosing this. Someone else is choosing this for you, even though you never thought this day was going to come. And then I go and I talk to a therapist, and I'm trying to open up to her and be as honest as I can, but I'm still trying to be a little stoic and not wanting to share as much as I
Yeah.
want. And but I mean, and then the emotion just takes over because I honestly I couldn't control it. Like I was just like, it's hitting me, and it feels like I'm getting hit by a Mack truck, and I need to talk to somebody. And then of course once I tell her, I was just like, oh, I was in the military and I worked for this other company, and I did all these other things. She's like, I'm shocked you haven't had an episode before. Like I'm really shocked that you have not.
You've been saving it just for this.
Yeah.
Yes, right. And she's like, pretty much your backpack is full. And they added one more thing, and that was it.
That was it.
Yeah. You just could not keep operating the way you were at such a high level and just think that you could put it all behind me.
Yeah.
Or put it all behind me. So yeah, that was that eye-opening moment for me where I realized like I needed to get help, but they kind of were. It was an involuntary reaction
Yeah.
myself, and then having just a good officer in the fire department being like, hey man, let's get you in there. Let's get you to talk to somebody. And I think that was the best thing I could do to
Yeah.
help heal.
So is that there? Sorry,
No, you're good.
I'm just curious. So is that therapist? Do they specialize in first responders, military?
They do. Yeah. It's a company and organization that our fire department used for a long time.
Yeah.
It's the fact to where our captains and a lot of people on the job have used them for a long time as well. And that was their first kind of, let's get you there and talk to them and see if it's a good fit for you. So it was definitely someone we used, and they were like, he knew the phone number right away. He's like, no, I'm going to make a phone call for you, bud. And they're head right over there. I'm like, okay, perfect. So yeah. So someone that they used.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is, I was given the same therapist number by my medic who, I was working for or with, when I got injured, but we had talked about his mental health is huge. And like the best thing about the department that we worked for was that it wasn't as taboo. Like we were really trying to make that shift. The culture was great around it. Whereas like there are still fire departments out there that it is not as talked about, like it's just don't talk about it. Sweep it under the rug, move forward, camaraderie, dark jokes, we'll be fine. It's moving, push through it. But yeah, so I'd actually initially gotten her info from him. We were having just a conversation at the firehouse one day. Like, oh, that'll be good to have in my back pocket. I don't know that I actually saved it. He might have texted it to me, but I remember reaching out to him again after the injury. I was like, hey man, can I get her number? And it was about 3 months after I got injured, I started seeing her in January of 24. And like I said, I've been seeing her at least once, twice a month ever since. Not just because of the injury, but also just like life around that, like life does not stop because you got injured. So now you're adding everything else on top of that. And then the medical retirement, and then, my wife's mother passing, and it's just all these things like just kept getting stacked and stacked. And funny enough, I started seeing this therapist before her mom passed away. So it was just perfect timing. And then luckily, or funny enough, my wife started seeing the same therapist. I mean, she's fantastic, but she's obviously widely used and been used before. So people knew, they're like, this lady's great. She's tailored to us. She knows what we go through. She's talked to a lot of our guys before. And she's been
6 of us that use her.
No kidding. Yeah. I believe it. Yeah. But yeah, it's a great resource to have. And if I hadn't been done doing therapy, I would definitely be doing therapy now, post retirement. But I think that's the only reason I've been able to process it as well as I have. I would be in such a bad way, like more so than I am now, had I not already been in it, It has helped me change my mindset or see things differently, given me a different perspective about how to look at it. And she'll call me like on the reality of things, or, I'm trying to like make up an excuse or a BS, whatever. And she's like, she'll put you back in your shoes real fast about like the reality of what's going on. It's like, oh, okay. That's what's happening. But yeah, it's been a game changer. And I think most people who are open to it could use therapy, especially in healthcare, first responders, fire, EMS, all of it. I think it's huge.
100%.
No.
Yeah, a good therapist will unpack the world of what you're trying to create.
Yeah.
And on the
Yes.
opposite, and the reason why I asked is I've had experience going to therapists that aren't specialized in, EMS, and then it makes you feel you don't know who you are. It's like they don't even understand. They
Yeah.
have license and understanding people, and I feel like they still don't understand what I'm saying.
Right.
So, like, if I had to say anything regarding the subject, is even if it's injury or mental health, try to go to somebody that specializes in that field, so you actually feel understood a little bit more.
It makes a difference.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the problems too, sometimes that when we fail during therapy, we get locked into that. How can they understand?
Yeah.
They've never been on an ambulance.
Right.
How can they understand? They've never been in a fire engine. How can they understand? Never been in Iraq. Like all these different things, right? And we just and hey, you see some therapists and they just don't work, right? You just don't vibe well. You don't.
That's so true.
Yeah, and I've tried several throughout the years, and our therapist was the first one that was just like you said, no BS. Like you've been lying to yourself long enough. Don't lie to me.
Yeah.
Let's be honest about this. And I've worked with hundreds of you guys, and gals and stuff. And so it's one of those, I know your world, as best as she does know our world, right? And what we've gone through and helped so many people out of dark, dark holes and all of this stuff. So I think it's, she definitely has the experience and I'll give you her number.
Yeah.
I think I've seen her already.
Yeah, probably. And that's like what you just said towards the end of that was that's the one thing I'll tell people, regardless of if you're in fire EMS or not, but you have to find the right therapist for you. Like it's definitely not one size fits all. Like this particular woman could work for him and I and 6 other dudes, but it might not work for, some other guys or gals are on a job.
Yeah.
But
I think that's real important to understand, right?
Yeah.
Because I've known many of providers who have gone to therapy once, didn't have a good experience, and that was it.
Yeah.
And a lot of them didn't get out that I've known didn't have a second opportunity to see a therapist because it was too late.
Yeah.
And so I think that's really important for everybody to understand is exactly that point.
Yeah.
Right.
It's not a one size fits all.
It's not a one size fits all.
I
So
agree.
that being said, going through this tragedy, going through these events, before we segue into another topic, what part of you has remained the same through this? Many people are like, what's changed you? But what's remained the same?
That's an excellent question.
Oh yeah. I mean, I think the good question. I was gonna be like,
I know it's different.
Yeah.
You got a beard now. That's
Yeah.
right. So your beards are looking really nice.
So,
Yeah. Yeah, we got a twin.
So reality, what's stayed the same?
I mean, I've tried to stay as close to my routine, as like prior to, still go to the gym. It just might look different. Like everything looks different now. It's same, but different, as far as the gym, less weight. Maybe I'm not in the gym as long, different movements, not as, it's different. So I still try to go to the gym. I still, try to stay proactive. And I don't know, there's just a lot of things that I learned that were ingrained in me in the fire department that I try to hold on to, getting up early. And I don't know, that's a tough question because I feel like so much has changed that I've lost like what has remained the same. I think maybe the work ethic, of like, the discipline that you've learned or some of those things, but, it's hard because when you're not, I mean, I know that you're doing a little bit of coaching, but when I first got medically retired, like I'm working at UC Health in a GI lab. It's a very different job, but I still translate my work ethic and the discipline that I have into like what I'm doing, if that makes sense, or even the education stuff, and that the GI lab is not the most glorious job in the world, but like, at least I can take pride in what I'm doing every day, like what I'm doing and contributing. So that's kind of, I guess, how I try to remain the same, but it's kind of that's a difficult question.
Fun fact. That's how we reconnected.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I was working and he paid a visit.
I come rolling in. I'm like, what are you doing, Shaq?
And funny enough, I saw his name on the board and I was like, I think that might be who I think it is. And then sure enough, I was like, oh, hey, man.
Yeah.
So it's a small world, right?
Yeah, small world.
I agree with you. I think it's one of those. We didn't lose our wanting to be involved and help other people and do all of that. I think that's kind of really ingrained into us right now. And like you said, I'm doing some coaching with some kiddos and stuff like that, and that's really cool. I can just shift my focus a little bit there, and I can learn that process, and I can help the kids and that sort of thing, even though it's completely different. And then I'm also teaching some EMT classes and that sort of thing, so I can stay in that world as well. But I think our drive probably just to keep helping people, try to make a difference in whatever we can do, even though our lives look completely different.
Drastically.
But it's also the positives to that. It's like I see my kids every day, and I can help them out. help my wife with whatever she needs around the house
Yeah.
and whatnot. So it's one of those, hey, I'll be there for you because she's been there for me for everything, you know. And I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a hard question.
That is a hard question.
Good question.
Yeah, it is a
It's
good question.
It's a very good question.
So as we're moving forward, and we talk about us staying the same, you guys changing, the injuries that you guys have faced, what lessons should the new EMS provider, EMT or paramedic, hear or learn from this talk? What would you like to give? There's one thing that they could learn out of this. What would it be?
I think some good points we really made already is be an advocate for yourself if you are injured. Ask lots and lots of questions on what this looks like. Lean on other guys and girls that have had that maybe had an injury or that sort of thing. Advocate for yourself and have a backup plan.
Yep.
Like let's not always think we're invincible and we can go on for nothing's ever going to happen to us. So it'll happen to us. And, and then it does. And it's like a wake up call.
Mm-hmm.
Not the best wake up call either. So I
No.
think it's advocate for yourself the best way you can. If there is an injury, or if you just want to know, hey, what does it look like if this does happen? I hope it doesn't, but what does it look like? I know they tell us like, hey, fill out the injury reports every time you get injured. Doesn't matter what it is, CYA.
Yeah.
But also, what if it does happen? Like, what does that look like for me and moving forward? And do we have a light duty? How well will our department take care of us and save up my sick time? Just to be safe. But I think those are kind of the biggest ones for me, and just it's probably what I would have to say.
Yeah, I guess just to reiterate, like take care of yourself as best you can, mentally, physically, spiritually, however you can. This job already takes so much out of you or from you, right? And not all in a bad way. It just requires a lot of work. I mean, it can be life or death. Like it's a huge responsibility and being accountable for that, but also I guess on the other side of that, like enjoy it while you can, because you never know. You never know, as we're experiencing, like enjoy it while you can, because I know that there are days, I'm sure we've all felt it in this room of like, gosh, why did I choose this job? Of like, it's a long shift. It's the, the fifth time that homeless person is called, or the frequent flyer, so it's easy to get lost in that and to forget like why you got into it. I know people have spoken about this before, about like, remember why you got into this job. Yeah, never forget where you came from. And but like I've definitely experienced that in my career. Maybe not, getting on with where I was currently. I hadn't quite gotten there yet. I was relatively brand new, not to the fire service, but to that department. But I had felt it elsewhere, like just that feeling. But yeah, if I could tell that new person, like just enjoy it while you can and remember why you got into it. It's nothing new. It's, I know millions of people have said before, but yeah, remember why you got into it and enjoy it.
I think any profession, right? For medical, I mean, just nurses or doctors or EMTs, hospital buses or, on the engine. I think it's everyone can just kind of reflect, and probably just in any of those fields, they can really understand if this happened to them, because it could, right?
Yeah.
In any situation. So I think that's huge.
Yeah. There's a quote, and I'm going to butcher it, but it's from The Office, and Andy says it. He says, and I don't know if I can say it on the podcast as far as like branding and stuff. Yeah. You can cut this part out. But he says, he basically says like, you don't know like that you're in the days of your life until like after that. He definitely says it differently. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about, but yeah, it's, you don't know you're in it until afterwards. And then you reflect and you're like, wow, like that was, and now I'm not saying it's like peak, right? Like there's still much more life to be had and there's many more things to look forward to, but that was definitely a highlight of my life that is now over. And I didn't know that was coming, so yeah.
Well, I think that is a great closing topic. Dean, Shai, I really appreciate you guys for coming. Our first guest on the podcast.
Hopefully we rocked it.
That's a good one. Hopefully we'll get banned after that.
Yeah.
I appreciate you guys having us, and I think these are great topics.
Yeah.
That people can. Yeah. I think a lot of people can relate to.
Yeah. Thank you for having us and talking about the hard things that we don't always want to talk about.
Yeah, I think it's important as we look at this. I mean, Chris and I, when we looked at starting this podcast, and we looked at each other and go, "No, what do you want to do?" Storytelling, So I think there's learning in everything. It's one of my passions in life, training and education. And in storytelling, there's learning. And your story is a crucial part of hopefully, climbing over the fourth wall and seeing somebody that's going to maybe listen to this and, you know what, that I relate to that story. Or I can understand that. We talk a lot about, saving others a lot in EMS. But sometimes the hardest call is learning to live when your tones are done and it's not going off and the pagers are not going and the radio chattering in the background.
Yeah.
That's a hard concept and something that's not talked about. So I appreciate you guys coming out and talking about it. And to every provider who's carrying invisible weight, remember you're not alone. You're not alone. You have providers that have shared that load that are willing to make that phone call and have that phone call with you. You have therapists that are willing to have a conversation with you, loved ones. Just remember you're not alone. And in anything that we do, we feel isolated sometimes.
Yeah.
And that's normal to feel that way. It is not normal to stay that way. And we want to make sure we understand that and to get healing and get help. And part of this is to understand that, we really want to train minds. It's one of our mottos. We really want to heal hearts. And I thank you guys. I want to thank you guys for coming and speaking on our podcast and hopefully hear from you guys soon and the updates in the future.
Absolutely.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, guys.